Aloha and welcome to Tiki Tuesday Talks. Super excited to have you guys here. We're still keeping it tropical despite the cool down of the weather. We're going to introduce some very special guests today. How's it going, everybody?
Hi there.
Julie, what a setup. Where are you at right now?
I'm coming to you from Brooklyn, New York.
Nice. Very cool. You're obviously the most professional person we've had on with your setup. No offense to everybody else.
You can't make cocktails and not, look like a pro, right? At least you got to look like you know what you're doing.
Right. And you're a little more minimalist here with your background and setup.
Yeah, I'm in the distillery offices in Belize, but there's no windows in my office, so there's no.
I'm imagining outside is a little more beautiful.
Well, actually, it was a thunderstorm just a couple of minutes ago, so it's a lot quieter right now.
There you go. Right on. Chastity.
Hi.
What's happening?
You're in the Windy City.
Where you at?
In the Windy City.
Windy City.
Yeah. It's getting chilly outside.
Is it windy and cold yet or not yet?
It's getting there. Fall is here.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Right. I'm in Vegas. We kind of don't really have that, which is nice. Yeah. Well, I went through the pain of 115, so.
I don't want that either.
No, you don't want that. Steva.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm in Birmingham where it will be like 75 degrees for the next 4 weeks. So it's.
There you go.
That's great.
Aaron, you're outside this time with the plants that you haven't grown.
Yeah, no, I upgraded my tree. Upgraded my tree.
Right on.
It's the tropical oasis of Baltimore, Maryland. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What a destination for that.
Sure.
All right. Well, we have a very cool show for you guys today. Going green in rum production. So Ed, as master distiller, is going to give a lot of background on kind of traditional production and then what those guys are doing there. Julie, owner of many amazing bars, a lot of the reason that many of us are here, also global brand ambassador for Copalli, is going to give a little bit of her context and background on sustainability at the bar, make us an amazing cocktail. As always, chat box and questions. If you guys are on Crowdcast or Facebook Live, please hit us with questions. We'll try and integrate them. Always appreciate when you share the event. Presentation 30 to 40 minutes. Cocktail session for 10. Questions with the Tiki fam after that. So a little bit of background for everybody. So Julie Reiner, Copalli Global Brand Ambassador, born and raised in Honolulu, has worked extensively in SF and NYC, and is certainly a pioneer in the cocktail bar and restaurant scene. Owner of several iconic establishments over the years, including more recently Leyenda and Clover Club in NYC, both amazing spots in Brooklyn. Recognized nationally in several industry publications, including Food and Wine Enthusiast, and authored the 20 book, The Craft Cocktail Party. She was a James Beard Award nominee. I'm sure there's a lot more that we could talk about. Moving on to Ed Teach, so President Master Distillery, Copalli Distillery. He was involved in all the construction, commissioning, and development of the distillery and the rum prior to being a part of Copalli. Ed ran his own distillery in Westchester, New York for 10 years. Where in Westchester, by the way, Ed?
Portchester.
Oh, wow. Nice. I worked in White Plains for a little while. So I have a little bit of Westchester experience.
Right down 287.
There you go. There you go. He received the Master of Science in Industrial Administration. He's a native New Yorker, but spending his time in beautiful Belize, or the office, at least.
Right, the office, right.
So we'll kick over to you and your deck here.
Okay. Let me
Oh, no. Wait, sorry.
You're going to do a video, right?
We're doing a video. I almost forgot, but I didn't. All right. Let me get that queued up. All right, we got a quick video here for you guys to give a little visual context.
Here at Copalli Rum Distillery, we're making a certified organic, estate-grown, single-origin rum. The ingredients in this rum are really just sugarcane juice, yeast, and rainwater. Historically, distilleries have just dumped their waste right into the water or right onto the land. Being a single estate rum, we actually have control of the entire process. We designed this distillery to be zero impact. We didn't only want to not do any harm to the environment, but we actually want to do it in the environment. It's basically a closed loop system. We're utilizing all of the waste on site. The steps of the zero waste distillery really start in the fields. First, we plant. We harvest by hand, creating local labor and reducing waste. The sugarcane is then brought to the sugarcane mill where it's crushed. The juice goes to the fermentation tanks. The waste product is dried just enough to go right into the boiler. The boiler then makes steam for the distillation process. The waste from the distillation is then used as fertilizer, put back in the fields, and then we plant all over again. The rainforest is sort of like the lungs of the world, and it's so important that we maintain a healthy ecosystem here. This really is one of the cleanest rums available. We're not adding anything to it. When you're drinking this rum, you know exactly what it is. Just very clean, organic. You can really embody the spirit of this place.
Beautiful. I thought that was Baltimore for a second.
Close by. Oh, you know, it's an easy mistake to make.
Right on. All right. So let's get it started. I'm going to hand it over to you. And
Okay.
I'd love to hear about kind of your process and especially the context of, what is traditional volumetric rum production and how that's done and how it's maybe not as sustainable and then what you guys are doing.
Right. So let's talk about kind of, how things are done in general in the rum industry and, maybe how it's a little bit different, how we do things a little differently and highlight those differences. Let's go back. That got away from me. Okay. So, hybridized sugarcane and non-hybridized. So those are fine terms, but I think I'd rather think about those terms as opposed to in more like commercial sugarcane production and maybe varietal in thinking about that way. So, it's hybridized, sugarcane is a worldwide commodity. It's produced by very efficient plants and the idea of factories, and the idea is to grow a specific type of sugarcane plant that is optimized for sugar extraction. So what you want from that kind of plant is a very high sugar content per pound of plant. You want high fiber content because after you squeeze and extract the juice, the leftover fibers are going to go ahead and run energy producing equipment for the plant to provide steam and electricity. And if you maximize those two things, the juice itself is really what that tastes like isn't very important, right? Because really what you're doing is you're just recreating, you're looking to create sugar. So the juice isn't that important. When you're thinking about a non-hybridized or a varietal sugarcane like we produce, the one thing that's most important is the flavor of the juice, right? So it's like thinking about table grapes versus wine grapes. Those things they're both grapes, but they taste completely different because of the quality of the juice and what you're going to do with them.
Is it right to think about it as one is really concerned with yield and the other is concerned with flavor profile?
That's exactly it, right? So it's really what you're doing is you're trying to maximize the efficiency of the plant to produce sugar to sell in a commercial market, in a commodity market, and the other is to produce, a special product that has, unique flavor and characteristics. So, for the varietals, they're going to have less sugar. We have less fiber. They're actually a little bit softer, so they're even thought of as chewing cane. And you can take a bite out of it and chew and get the juice that far. Also, the growing cycle is a little longer. Commercial cane is usually like 9 months. You can turn the field around. For our canes, it's usually 12 to 15 months. And like I said, the flavor of the juices are really of paramount importance. That's really the principal differences that we're looking at in those types of sugarcane that's grown. For how it's harvested, virtually everyone harvests cane, and certainly for commercial sugarcane production, it's used mechanical harvesters. It's certainly most efficient, it's higher yield, versus what we do, or a lot of small distilleries they'll hand cut the harvest. So there's, it's not as efficient to the mill, there's lower yields. For a machine harvester, you could basically do 30 tons an hour. For our hand harvest, we'll do 30 to 35 tons a day. So that's the kind of differential you get, and it's also the impacting on the fields too, right? You have to grow your fields in a specific way for the harvester to handle it. Doesn't usually necessarily take into account the natural contours and the drainage of the land. So it's really to optimize for the machine's production.
And as a lot of that, from my understanding, is many people will burn those fields too in order to run those machines through them.
Right, and not all do, but for a lot of commercial grains, commercial sugarcane, they do burn the fields. It reduces the amount of excess material that's not sugar-based, right? So all the extra leaves and things like that. So the machines can run through it a little bit faster. It's a little bit a more efficient product for the plant, the sugar manufacturer to operate. I will say that for the Martinique guys, for the rum agricultural guys, they don't burn the fields either. So they use machine harvesting, but they don't burn their fields. They just they use the cane as
I don't know. We actually didn't discuss it, but I founded a cachaça brand that we work with a third generation producer, and I think we're going to see a lot of similarities in terms of the way you guys produce and she produces. But in industrial cachaça, there is the burning, there is the
exactly right.
And artisanal is totally what you're describing. There is a question from the chat. What type of sugarcane name or number do you use?
Well, we basically have two kinds. They're kind of local varieties, or they've evolved locally. So we haven't had them DNA typed. We basically call them red and black based on their color characteristics. I can't really go much more into depth about that, but they're not the brittle hard cane that's grown in the north here in Belize for sugar production.
Got it. Cool.
Now moving on to certainly now everybody knows that rum is made from sugarcane, but the substrate that's used to make rum can be completely different. So basically 95% of the rum made in the world is based from molasses. I like to call basically molasses as industrial waste, but it's certainly the residual of sugar production, from white sugar production. And it's a traded commodity. The more and more efficient that sugarcane plants get, the poorer quality of the molasses that comes out of it. There's certainly, in rum production now, since it's a commodity and you basically buy it by the tanker load, there's not often a sense of place with the molasses based on where the rum is produced, right? So since most sugar production has left the Caribbean or stopped in the Caribbean, you often get their molasses from other places. So there's really not a sense of place in the rum itself, unless you're talking about, how they do it. But as far as, the agricultural product itself, there's not there.
Yeah, I like to make that analogy as well when I'm talking to people, and kind of like, I feel like sugarcane produced rum has a lot of similarities to agave distillates, right? Like it's
That's right.
You have where you grow it as an impact, the water, all those things really come to bear in a way that maybe is less so with the majority, certainly, of molasses-based distillates out there.
Right. And one thing I also like to add is that if you think about it, rums made from sugarcane juice are, depending on the process, but generally, if you're running your boiler on the leftover cane fibers, is generally a carbon neutral process.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for molasses-based rums, it's inherently not, right?
Because of the transportation aspect?
Well, the transportation, and you're basically, when you have to heat it again to redistill it, right, you're basically expending more energy than in carbon. You're releasing more carbon to run distills than what's been released from the sugar.
That makes sense.
Right.
We have another question for you here. How long after harvest does sugarcane begin to produce unwanted bacteria or off flavors? Like cut to press to, what have you.
Well, we cut the press. It's usually within an hour or so. I think you can probably hold it for about 12 to 18 hours before you start to get too much spontaneous fermentation. But that's usually the hours. You want to press as soon as it's harvested.
Yeah, it's great.
For us, you extract the cane, you press it right. You cut the cane, you extract it right away. You only use the first couple of pressings because it's like you press a grape. The more times you press it, the less quality of the wine that comes out of there. It's highly perishable. It's got to be locally produced. Right, even though there's sugarcane fields in the north of Belize, we can't use those fields even if we wanted to, because the transportation is too long to get here.
Right.
And it does, as you said, sugarcane does have a sense of place. It is like any other agricultural product. When we're running the stills and we're tasting the rum as it comes in, we can tell the difference even from different sections of the field. We can tell if it's from the northern or the western part of the fields as it comes in. It all depends on, how much drainage there's been or sunlight and all those things that goes in it. You really can tell the difference. Column stills versus pot stills. This might be a little bit. Well, inherently, there's nothing wrong with a column still. I don't want to say that column still rums are bad, but stills are really a separation technology, right? And what you're doing is you're really trying to capture the alcohol. So a column in a continuous still is really an efficient process. So if you're really trying to get the most alcohol the fastest way possible at the cheapest expenditure of dollars, it's really with a column still. Now, the trade-off with that is that with a column still, as the distillate comes off, it's coming off at a very narrow band of flavor at a constant alcohol percentage. So that's what you're giving up. So you're getting a lot of efficiencies, but since it's coming off at, depending on what the column produces, if it's a light rum, it's coming off at 188 proof or something like that. It's a very narrow band of flavors. Or if it's coming off at 150 proof, that's still it's all the volatiles that can exist at 150 proof at that temperature that alcohol comes out with. A pot still, on the other hand, is while certainly less efficient and certainly in a batch mode, it does provide you a broader spectrum of flavors from the underlying product that you're distilling, right? And so if you're growing something that has a lot of flavor and characters, like our non-hybrid sugarcane, right? You really want to capture as much of those flavors too, because as it comes off the still, it starts off at a higher alcohol percentage and it declines. And as it's declining, different layers of flavors are going to come off that still. And that's something that's impossible to capture on a column still.
Yeah, I like to to help people understand that, pot stills were effectively the first kind of stills. Column stills were in, technological advancement, quote unquote, if you will, to drive efficiency. right? So it's certainly more efficient. And I think you danced around it in a way that does make sense. It's not necessarily that everything off a column still is inferior per se, but certainly you're getting more character of the underlying base material in a pot still 100%. There's no way around that.
Right. That's what you're getting. Right. So depending on what you're looking for from your rum, I mean, we have a column still here, and we use it for, you know, blending at certain products or as a base for some of our, you know, flavor rums we're developing. But as far as, you know, really getting the character of the sugarcane juice, it really comes from the pot still. That's where it comes from. Water certainly is important especially in molasses rum production. You use a lot of water. So the way to think about it is not so much about, you know, what the source is, whether it's municipal or it comes from a natural source, but really what the strain on the water resources is, right? So if you're from an area that's rich in water and you can add it and you treat it and put it back in, there's not necessarily inherently bad about using molasses. But if you're from an area that has, you know, 20 inches of rainfall a year and you're drilling wells, you know, 200 feet deep and lowering the water table every time, you know, you're running your distillery, that's a problem. So I think it's, you know, one of the things we have to think about is, as a distillery, one of the things you're harvesting water from your environment that you're in, right? And you want to be able to do that in a responsible way that doesn't, you know, reduce that resource to, you know, the area that you're in, right? So maybe the idea of, you know, buying tankers of molasses and shipping them to, I don't know, let's say Las Vegas, and running a rum distillery in Las Vegas isn't very responsible from, you know, a water resource management point of view.
Yeah, it's an issue to think about it. Go ahead.
Right. On the other hand, if you're doing it here in Belize, which gets 180 inches of rain a year, and you're basically capturing that resource, one, in the sugarcane juice itself, and two, in the rainwater that you're collecting, and to the degree that in the wells, you know, in the limestone rock formations here, that's a different use. That might be viewed as a more responsible use of water. So that's kind of, you know, separate from the fact that we think, you know, using rainwater to blend with our rums